Child trafficking and abuse cases are on the rise, often as a result of the victims being the parents of have drug addiction, or they sort of come from background of poverty. What can and what should the government be doing to address this huge problem?
Oh my goodness.
Tina?
Child trafficking it happens a lot in Malaysia. I think the public isn't aware of how big and how serious the problem is over here. The NGOs who are involved with child trafficking or anti-child trafficking rather issues are working closely with certain ministries, but are hoping to form an inter-ministry task force in which we can sit down and do collaborative work together in terms of how we deal with the issues, whether it comes from victim identification all the way up to repatriation and reintegration of child trafficking issues. The problem with child trafficking is, the definition of what child trafficking is. There are lots of definitions and lots of interpretations of what it is, and we're still, I think, amongst the ministries and amongst the NGOs, we still have an issue in terms of agreeing to what it is as a whole in all the different types of trafficking that happens in this country. One of the biggest forms of child trafficking in Malaysia is illegal adoption, where babies and children from very poor families or from families that have social problems give up their children or sell their children and move children across borders and across lines for the intention of illegal adoptions, and to provide fake documentation in the process where fake birth certificates are given out. I think one of the best ways the government could help alleviate this problem is to look at the adoption laws again, because our adoption laws are very, very strict, and I think there needs to be a review of this. Another thing that we should do is to take child protection policies and create better awareness amongst the public in terms of taking care of your own children. You know, when you go to the supermarket, you don't leave your baby on the cart and you go look at your marketing goods. You have to keep an eye on your child. You don't let your children run around, shopping complexes by themselves. I mean, there's certain things that are just common sense that you just don't do in terms of public awareness. But I do think there has to be more stringent rules in terms of how we look at prosecuting child traffickers, how we look at prosecuting cases. The distinction made whether they're Malaysians or non-Malaysians is not an issue. I think that we should bring up children to children. The fact that, this is my child and that is your child, and I'll take care of my child and I won't take care of that child is wrong. I mean, if you see a child crying and it doesn't look right, there is no harm in going up to the child or the parent and go, is everything okay? There's really absolutely nothing wrong with that. I mean, children in Malaysia didn't disappear out of thin air. Someone saw them being taken. And I think it is part of our duty and our job, not just the government's responsibility, to keep an eye on all children. That's really one of the best ways I think we can help this problem go away.
Marina, quite often the victims themselves are blamed for the situation that they are in. Is this I mean, we talked about the case the other day of this lady, this teenager who
became pregnant.
Yes, became pregnant.
Yeah.
And it's a terrible situation.
Yeah, particularly working in AIDS, because everyone links it with morality so much. So the assumption is that anyone who gets infected is low in morals or certainly deficient in some way. It's a hugely judgmental way of looking at it, and it doesn't help at all. Because in fact, we have all sorts of people who get infected, very often not through their fault. They don't have the knowledge. They are unable, even if they had the knowledge, don't have the means of prevention. Young people have no access to condoms. They don't have access to sex education, for instance. Women have no say in what their husbands do. These are all larger issues which the victim really doesn't always have control over. And so we have to look at society and how society looks at the whole problem and see whether we are playing our role, and taking our responsibility in making sure that everyone has access to education, everyone has access to the means of prevention. And then we can start laying blame, But at the moment when we're doing nothing of the sort, and we're blaming people who have never heard of AIDS until they got tested, how can we blame them?
Would you say that the press are playing an appropriate role with
The press
are they doing a good
is doing
job in
something,
terms-
but they can do better. I think they can do better. They are definitely a conduit for information and education, but I think you have to look at the press as a whole. When they're talking about AIDS, generally they're quite good, but then they're also stigmatizing all the different groups in society in other stories. You know, when they talk about drug users, when they talk about young people, talking about women, and all of that adds up to an environment which is just not conducive to prevention. You know, it stigmatizes, it drives people underground. Then what do? You can't reach them.
Hartini, perhaps you want to add on to what Marina has just said?
In terms of
The press, I mean the role of the press.
I think the press is it could do better, exactly as Marina says. I think we need to educate the press more and have better relationships with the media in terms of providing training and providing information on the different issues. I know that in our cases, in terms of child trafficking and the issue of stateless children and stuff, we're trying to work out training programs and workshops where we can work better with media and provide them with the information they need to know, to ask better questions and to challenge us, yeah.
We are going to take another quick break, after which we will have a few more questions in our final session with Datuk Paduka Marina Mahathir and Dr Hartini Zainudin. We'll be back shortly.